What are you doing here, Franklin?
You know, I'm starting to realize that you got one job in this life. And it's to protect the people you love.
One of the themes of Snowfall, and especially for characters like Franklin Saint and Teddy McDonald, is this desire for respect, power, and protecting those you love. But sometimes ego does get in the way, especially with this cat and mouse game between Franklin and Teddy McDonald. Even though both of them have lost so much, they're still chasing each other and want each other dead. For Franklin, it's after he gets his 73 million, and after episode 8, he may just be one step closer to getting what he wants. For the first time, we saw these guys coming head to head when it came to Teddy, Gustavo, Franklin, as well as the KGB with Ruben. There's also a lot of tension over the last couple of episodes with the KGB watching the CIA, who are being watched by the DEA. Now, in the midst of this battle to catch Teddy at the warehouse, we also saw Louie having to bury her husband, Uncle Jerome, and with her blaming Franklin, the question was whose side would she pick? She made Franklin a promise in episode 6 that she'll help him get to Teddy, but she also made Teddy the same promise in episode 7, and so Louie as well as Gustavo had a huge hand to play in the events of Snowfall season 6, episode 8. Now, the death of loved ones often brings those who are at war together, even though it may be peace for a short while. Everybody does often normally stop to mourn the death of the fallen soldier. For Scully and Leon, their history runs deep. Leon accidentally killed his baby girl Tiana in season 4, and things haven't been the same for him since. But over time, Scully is someone who's found peace. Earlier in the season, we saw them lock eyes, and in episode 8, we saw Scully telling Leon he forgives him. Now, at Jerome's repast, we even see Franklin thinking about the good old days where he used to jump over the back gate and meet Mel, which was of course before things went left with her father Andre, and this goes back to one of the themes I said at the beginning, protecting those you love. Despite everything Franklin has built, one thing he's actually failed at doing is protecting the people he loves. Over time, there's no question and no doubt, Franklin Saint is a character who's turned a little greedy, but losing Uncle Jerome makes him think about the loss of Melanie, and who knows what will happen to Sissy, Veronique, and his baby. Now, where Scully was all about forgiveness, this is something that was definitely not on the cards for Franklin Saint.
We've all been carrying too much weight for a long time, Oso. Can't be for nothing.
So as Gustavo met with Franklin during Jerome's repast, and he said that they've been carrying way too much weight for a long time, and it can't all be for nothing. So we saw them commit to bringing down Teddy McDonald, with Gustavo telling him he's ready. He also wanted to make use of Franklin's plane, something which he probably would have used to help disappear his family. Franklin gave him the money and the passports, and so Gustavo was able to at least ensure his family was safe. Now, at the repast, Louie was also someone who had to make a decision, and she needed to make one quick. Was she going to side with Franklin Saint, or was she going to side with Teddy McDonald? And we had Franklin tell her he can't do this without her help. Now, from Louie's perspective, I don't think she wanted to help either of them, but I think she's beginning to understand just exactly how dangerous Teddy McDonald actually is and what he's capable of, so she makes it clear that she may be teaming up with Franklin, but she's only doing so she can free herself from Teddy. Now, this is the thing with Louie. Franklin did warn her in season 5 if he was capable of doing what he did to Franklin by swiping his 73 million, then what do you think he's gonna do to you? And her answer was she'll take her chances, but look where that's got her. Later that evening, we saw Louie get on the phone to Teddy to put the plan in motion. She tells Teddy that Franklin approached her about a loan and how she agreed to give him the money, but when they do and when they meet for that exchange, she's gonna have her guys grab him and then she'll bring him to Teddy. Now, one thing you do have to love about Teddy is he makes sure he crosses the T's and dots the I's. He gives her the location and tells her she can only come with one person, and later even changes the plan. But once Louie hangs up the phone, we zoom out and we see Franklin and Gustavo. And Gustavo was the key. The plan wouldn't work if Gustavo didn't show up, because then Franklin knew he'd be pretty much as good as dead. Gustavo's been under pressure ever since he'd been roped up by the DEA at the end of season 5, and Tony definitely noticed that Gustavo's been a little off, which is why he had the DEA agent Amanda ride along with Gustavo. Earlier in the season, we saw Gustavo shaky, nervous, asking questions, saying that Teddy is going to be onto them because he'll know that something isn't right. But all of a sudden, Gustavo is calm. He's not asking so many questions and he's just going along with the plan. That's because one of them, his main priorities, was his family. He wanted to make sure they were safe, and he knew they would be after Franklin held up his end of the deal by getting the passports and the money. He also gave Jamira a piece of paper that had his number, and he said that he'll check his answering service once a week, but if he doesn't hear from her, he'll assume she's safe. Now, after leaving Jamira and the kids, we saw Gustavo being watched by Ruben of the KGB, and lucky that he was, because we saw Gustavo being arrested by the DEA. After meeting with the members of the Colombian cartel in the desert with Amanda, she wasn't too happy that Gustavo was joking around that she was DEA, but even though it was a joke, it didn't sit well with Amanda as well as Tony. This is why he wanted Amanda to check up his whereabouts of his family. So as Tony and Gustavo made their way to Teddy's warehouse, Gustavo stops at a payphone where he makes his first phone call to Franklin's pager, which is a signal they were waiting for to move forward with the plan. But that raised eyebrows with Tony, so he rang Teddy instead. But it was too late. Amanda drives in and tells Tony that Gustavo's family is gone, and Gustavo was arrested by the DEA. Now the man who holds Franklin Saint's fate in his hands, he was sitting in the back of a DEA agent's car, and so at this moment in time, Franklin's life really was in the balance. Now with Teddy, he had a meeting with Steven from the CIA, who said the agency is ready to welcome Teddy back as soon as he transfers Franklin's stolen money. But after his talk with Parisa, Teddy basically says the CIA is no longer his future, and he can't just hand her over the 73 million. We then see Teddy propose, but there is no way in hell that Parisa and Teddy fly off into the sunset with Franklin's money and get married, especially as Franklin, Scully, and Louis continue with the plan. For the plan to work, they need to make it look like Franklin's at least put up a fight. So Louis takes all her anger out on Franklin, but this is where Teddy changed the original plan. He now wanted Franklin to be dropped off to a location and left there instead of making an exchange. Now at this moment in time they had no choice, and Franklin said it was worth taking the risk, and so Franklin was left tied up for Teddy to come and collect. I think at this moment in time Franklin knew he was in trouble, because Gustavo was nowhere to be seen, and he held the key to Franklin's life as we established before in the video. He knew that if he didn't show, he was as good as dead, and he really was hanging on for dear life. With Gustavo handcuffed in the back of a DEA car, he was rescued by Ruben from the KGB, because at this moment in time their interests did align. They both wanted to catch Teddy, and Ruben knows that he couldn't do that without Gustavo, so we saw Ruben killing Amanda and taking Gustavo to Teddy's warehouse. At this moment in time, Franklin's tied up with a wire around his neck, which is hanging from the ceiling, and the only thing that's stopping him from choking to death, or rather his neck snapping, is the barrel that he can barely plant his feet on. But as Teddy gets ready to inject him to sleep, Ruben walks in with Gustavo, and he tells Gustavo to handcuff Teddy. But when Teddy says that he has a gun strapped to his ankle, Ruben asks Gustavo to hand him the gun. But instead, we see Gustavo tackling Ruben, and in the fight, the barrel that's barely keeping Franklin alive is knocked down to the ground, and now it's race against time. Gustavo needed to beat Ruben, otherwise Franklin is dead. Now luckily for Franklin, Gustavo did come to his rescue, which Teddy was surprised with. He tells Gustavo that whatever Franklin's offered him, the CIA will track him down no matter what. But Gustavo knows that he'll never be safe with Teddy lurking over his shoulder, and he'd rather choose the lesser of the two evils, Franklin Sane. Now even though Franklin's won this battle, he hasn't won the war, not yet. I think Teddy's in for one hell of a torture, because nothing will get in the way between Franklin and his money, but will Teddy give it up? One thing's for sure, Teddy McDonald's pain tolerance is about to be tested. But drop all your thoughts down below on all things Snowfall Season 6, Episode 8. And of course, if you are new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Snowfall as well as Power Universe related. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.